In this video, we are going to see how to organize in the right way your PSB file. But before doing that, in order to import successfully your XR files, you need to go to xr-io.com and download this free plugin for your Photoshop software. And I recommend you to download this new version, the 2.0, which support Cryptomatte. So in case you're working with V-Ray, this would be extremely good and everything will work perfectly. So anyway, download it, install it, and then start Photoshop with this software, with this plugin on. So now I want to show you what happens when you install XR.io. I click on this XR file and then I get this new panel that asks me for some options. And by the way, normally I keep everything as it is by default because it works out of the box. There's nothing else to do here. So I click on open, and now my image, my XR, which basically will is an XR that get everything inside it. And this is something you can do from the frame buffer. You can decide to save all the passes, all the masks, together with the beauty pass in just one XR file. You will find some infos below this video to understand how to do that, depending on the render engine you are using. But anyway, now that the load session is done, as you can see, we have the beauty pass as the first one, and then it's automatically without the background. So XR.io automatically cut it out, and this happens only if you have a transparent background. So while you are in the frame buffer, be sure that you can look at the passes, you can check the passes, go into the alpha, and you should see something like a white where you have the building and black where you have the sky. If that happens, then you get this result, which is exactly what you're looking for, because you're going to put your background in Photoshop, not from the render engine. Now, here we have the beauty pass. Here we have some passes, as you know, and here we have some masks. Now, if you do that with something with Cryptomatte elements inside, that is the case, you basically are using V-Ray and you're getting some Cryptomatte, you can just keep this option on, and you click on open. I mean, if you don't know how to stop Cryptomatte, you can check below this video and you will find the link to a tutorial we have on our blog. And this is the render, and this is like some other base pass. This the glare, the effect result, which is the base pass with the glare on top of it. And then you have all the Cryptomatte layers, which in Photoshop, I mean, normally you used to see them in colors, but in Photoshop they are basically just white layers with a shape. So how can you use this? You can just control click on the thumbnail of the level just to load the shape of it, and then you can go and immediately use an adjustment to work on the area. Now, this doesn't make any sense, but it's just a proof that it's actually working, and it's amazing because this will take care of depth of field if you have blur in the scene and other effects from the camera. Okay, so this is how it works. Now we can go back on the previous example. We can open this one again, and we can start planning our post-production just by building and grouping together layers. Okay, now that the file is open, we can look at the layers, and we can see that the first one is the RGBA, which is basically the beauty pass, is the final render, and we can just Control G, we can press Control G to close it into a group, and we call this one render. Okay, and I write these render word uppercase, and I will do the same for every main group. Okay, so and you will see in the post-production file there will be different type of group. There's like main groups and there are like subgroups, and just to have a difference between them, I write the name of the main groups uppercase. And then if there's any subgroup inside there, we are going to write the name lowercase. It's just an idea. You can have your own rules. This is mine, and you can adopt it or not. So anyway, this is the render, and even if it's just one single layer, it's inside the render folder. Now, what we can do here, let's say that we can work on exposure, we can work on gamma. If we have some mistakes in the render itself, we can just render some regions, and you can place them here. But the problem is, sooner or later, you will bring this file depth from 32 to 16, because in 32-bit you cannot do a whole post-production. So what to do? Instead of bringing here render region or exposure, gamma adjustment, etc., the first thing you do here is right-click, convert to smart object, and so this render layer will always be 32-bit no matter what. Okay, so this is the first thing, the most important thing to do. And then you close the group, and then you take all the passes and you group them together. Okay, and this is group passes, and this group goes on top of the render. Okay, and the reason is sometimes we need a render pass, and we want to make this group visible, and we want to check them. And when we find something we may need, then we can, take this, make a copy, and bring it in another folder. But because we want to see them, this should be on the top, always on the top. So, I mean, in case you don't want to see it anymore, you just hide it with the eye icon. And same thing for the masks. So here we have masks. Doesn't matter if you have a red, green, blue mask, or crypto mask, or black and white mask. It doesn't matter. What you do here, you select all the masks, you group them together, and you put a mask name on the folder, on the group, and then you bring the group on the top here. You can keep it basically under passes or over passes, doesn't really matter. It should be on top of the post-production anyway. And the most important thing here inside the mask group is to create a new layer, bring it at the bottom of the group, and fill it black. So you can just, take a black color, but this is a 32-bit file. So, I mean, this is something you can do even after when you just, change the mode to 16-bit. But anyway, if you want to fill a layer in 32-bit, you press Shift F5 and you get the fill command, and then you select black here, and that's it. And now you have a black background. And the reason for this black background, I want you to remember, is just because when you want to select an area, you need to get only the colors from the mask, nothing from below the mask. So this is necessary, and we need to add it manually. Okay, so here we have masks, and we can shut them down. Now let's talk about planning. Okay, let's talk about how to manage, how to organize your PSB, your PSD, whatever. What I came up with almost 10 years ago is a file structure that is based on the distance between you or the camera and objects you can see in the file. Okay, so what can we do here? Now let's start from something simple. Okay, let's say that here we have the render, and the render goes from the camera to a certain point. And of course, if we have to put inside this render of like a sky image, the sky is probably the last thing, the furthest thing in between, in the scene. So what we do is we create a new group, right? We call it sky, and we bring it on at the bottom, because there's the render in between us and the sky, so the sky is the last one. Now let's say that, I don't know, let's suppose we have a forest or a city or a mountain in between us and the sky, in between the render, in between the building and the sky. It should be in here, okay? So we create a new folder, and here we call it background, okay? BG, which stands for background. So everything which is not the render and it's not the sky goes inside there. And of course, I mean, you can create subfolders. I don't know, you can have, I don't know, a subfolder called like trees, another subfolder called like, I don't know, mountains, okay? But again, if your trees are in front of the mountain, the group should be on top, okay? Because everything is based on the distance between the camera, you, and that object, okay? And then inside the render, we have just one layer. And if you want to modify, exposure, if you want to modify the gamma, if you want to add a render region, I don't know, maybe you have something wrong, like a chair flying on top of the floor, and you want to fix it, the new piece of render have to be inside here. So you double click in there, you put, the new render there, and then you close, you save, because it's gonna ask you to save, and then this will be updated, okay? So everything with informations coming from the render engine should be there, should be in the 32-bit file, and should stay 32-bit file. Now, on top of the render, what we normally do is adjustment folder, okay? Adjustment, ADJ. What is an adjustment? An adjustment is anything that will modify the actual render, okay? In some way, I don't know, this part is too dark and you want to make it brighter, or you want to have some, I don't know, dirt on this concrete wall. So you should ask yourself, the things I want to modify, they already, belongs to the render itself, or is something I need to, put on top of it, like, and doesn't make any, there's no correlation between this things and the render. Let's do some examples. Do I want to put some grass here in the foreground? There's no grass here, so this is the wrong folder to put some grass. But let's say that I want to change the color of this swimming pool tiles. Well, those tiles are already in the render, and so the adjustment folder is the right folder to go and work with, okay? Of course, we are going to get many different subfolders in there. I will show you how to work with that in the next video, but you get the idea. Now, after the adjustment folder, we have another folder, which is the props folder, okay? And in the props folder, we can just put anything which is not directly related to the render itself. I don't know, you have to put some grass here in the foreground, well, props folder. You want to put a tree here in the foreground, props folder. You have to put a person here swimming in the swimming pool, well, props folder, and so on. So anything you basically add on top of the render, but is not part of the render itself, okay? And again, everything here, the position of the subfolders depends on the distance between us and the camera and that object. So for example, if we have some grass, we will have a grass folder, and if on top of the grass here, very close to the camera, we have some branches, I don't know, the branches will be on top of the grass folder, okay, because they are closer to us. And I feel like this way of working is pretty solid. Sometimes you can, break the rules. Yes, of course, you can do whatever you want, but not at the beginning, okay? First, learn a solid method, and then you can, do whatever you want if you feel you need it, okay? And then after the props, there's a new folder, and this folder is the effects folder, and it's on top of props because let's say that, for example, we have some rain. We want to add some rain coming down from the sky. The rain will be on top of everything in the PSD file, okay? So it doesn't matter if you have grass or not, rain will be on top of grass, and so on top of the prop folder, okay? So effects are something that basically manage and to change the entire scene no matter what. Of course, you can have some masks, you can just, have some fog, and the fog could be on top of an area but not on top of another area. I mean, sure, you can do whatever you want, but this is the right folder to have such effects like I don't know, rain, fire, fog, smoke, and stuff like that. Okay. And then for the last one is the finalization folder. Okay. Finalization. And basically this is something like what you do on Instagram when you have your photo and you want to modify the look of the photo. Maybe you want to contrast the photo, maybe you want to add filter, maybe you want to some color grading. And this is the right place where to do it, because of course you don't want to have a part of the image without with different grading, I would say. And so this is the last thing. I mean, it's not, I'm not saying that you need to do an extreme type of finalization. Okay, so maybe just a curve, maybe just a color balance, maybe just a very subtle white balance, or maybe you can just take the whole image and run it through a camera raw filter and do some massive post-production about color grading and contrast and other HDRI effects, but it should be done at the end. Okay. And normally what I do if I need to use the camera raw filter is, before even doing it, I make a smart object of the final render. So I make a new layer, you will see, and then I make a smart object. So every time I work on the camera raw filter, I can basically have some results and save the results. If I have to change something beneath that, I will just copy the results of the camera raw filter, and my new layer, my new render, my new, I would say, final render will be updated with the same filter. So I don't, if you go for a finalization, if you change the mood of the entire image, you don't have to do it every time. Okay, every time you change something below this folder. And it's time saving, and also you can clearly see if you are actually getting a better image or not. Okay, now even if this is the base idea of the structure of a file, you can of course modify it once you learn it. And one more thing, I mean, this is something I've done, like I've it's like 10 years I've made up this structure. So if you see someone else with the same names, probably you were here at SOE Academy. But anyway, if you feel like you are losing yourself because you have too many folders, remember that you can right click on the folder, on the groups, and pick a color for there. And so everything inside that folder will get the same color. Okay, so if I have a new layer inside here in effects, even in that layer will be orange. Okay, and this helps a little bit more about understanding where stuffs are, and that's it. And remember, time to time, just save and go on. Now a few more things before you go back to image mode and then convert the entire file to 16-bit. There is something you need to do, and that is basically go to the passes and then select all the passes that you think they are overexposed, like this one, and you can basically fix the exposure of them before converting the file to 16-bit. Otherwise, you will get this result even after. And then the Z-depth. The Z-depth is one of the most important layers. Okay, and what you need to do here is to put a black layer behind it if there's nothing behind. Okay, so I'm just filling this layer with a black color, and then you take these two layers together, you Control E to merge them, And because you want to keep your ZDEP 32-bit forever, you need to right click on the layer itself, you see, and then you click on duplicate layer. And from this drop down menu, destination document, you pick new. And in this way, you will bring the ZDEP, you will copy the ZDEP in a brand new document. And the reason is, in this document, you will play with the ZDAP because, the ZDAP allow you to make masks based on the distance and other stuff. And then, when you are happy with the mask, you can Control Alt Shift E, make one layer out of it and copy it and bring it back on this file, which will be now a 16-bit. So now I go here, mode, 16-bit channel, don't merge, and boom, now every pass, every mask is now 16-bit, which is cool because we can work on it. The render, is still a 32-bit because it's inside a smart object, and the ZDEP is in another file and it's still 32, and that means that we can do, for example, stuff like this. We can invert the ZDEP. Now, there's no invert on 32-bit, but you can use levels to invert the ZDEP just by inverting these 2 points here, you see, and it automatically look a little bit like fog, which is great. And you can keep doing, stuff like this. Now, this is not the last version of Photoshop. I will probably swap now because in the new version, you have also curves in the 32-bit, but now we can work anyway on levels. And as you can see here, we can just, I can just make it more contrasted just because I want maybe a mask of everything like inside the building like this. I don't know, just pretending I'm working on something. And once you are happy with this, you Control Alt Shift E to make a new layer, Control A, Control C, and you can go back on, the starting file and go into the channels, make a new channel and paste, and then you have a new mask coming directly from the ZDEP. But because the ZDEP is 32-bit, you can have, a lot of informations, and then you can do this and reveal them, I would say, which is not possible if you convert the ZDEP to 16-bit. Okay, it's not gonna work as good as it works now. Okay, so you have the render, beauty pass, BG, sky, adjustment, props, effects, finalization, and then a couple of groups which are mostly hide it for most of the time because you get there only when you need them.